Yep.
Gosh, I don't know.
I think we just clean it.
Well, we're live, so hi. If anyone's waiting.
That's much better.
Oh,
Look at that.
This is glorious. Oh, and we are definitely live. Someone said good evening. Hi.
Hello.
Wonderful.
Hope everyone's got some lemon meadow ready.
I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to allow people to join us as we are uncharacteristically early.
Good to hear.
From Idaho. Awesome. We're all over the world.
I love it. Tell us where you're all from. Hi, Robert. Ernie is definitely winning the furthest away from Idaho at the moment. Blairgowrie, much closer to home. Germany, excellent. Matt and I are in London today.
Wonderful. So, I think while we wait for just a handful more people to arrive, encourage everyone to pour themselves a dram. We in front of us have got the Flagship whiskey, Nc'nean Organic, and we've got Huntress Lemon Meadow, the brand new release that we're all here for today.
Woohoo!
If you can, it's lovely to have the two side by side, as we'll get to later. Kind of the joy and the unique selling point of the Huntress series is seeing and tasting the effects of what happens when you change something in production and create something new. So to have that kind of benchmark of what we normally do and then see what these new elements have brought, it's nice to have them side by side. We also very sneakily have a special treat for us to taste. And if anyone else happens to have bought a bottle, they're welcome to taste it with us. But we'll
come on to that, exactly. And also, please talk to us in the comments. It's lovely to know who's here, where you're from, and ask us questions as we go, because I'm sure that we'll miss stuff out that you want to know. So please type away and we'll do our best to answer them all.
Wonderful.
Should we start with some intros?
We can start with some introductions. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Who are you?
I am Matt Hastings. I am the blender for the Nc'nean Distillery. I'm also our UK on-trade brand ambassador, our photographer, our videographer, our part-time marketeer, floor sweeper, whatever's needed.
Occasional floor sweeper.
And who are you?
Who am I? Hello, I'm Annabel. I'm the CEO and founder of Nc'nean. So yeah, I've been working on this for 12 years, and I guess it was my brainchild. So I'm particularly excited about this evening because, as we'll come on to say, Lemon Meadow was our first ever yeast trial, and that was a very important part of what I wanted to do when I started Nc'nean. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. Perfect.
So I think if we kick off then, and hello, everyone else that's joined in globally. Lovely to have you. I think we can start because this is the fourth Huntress release that we have created so far in Nc'nean.
Right.
So a brief introduction into what is Huntress.
Yeah.
Where does the name come from? What kind of liquid is produced in the series?
So Huntress is all about experimentation. And when I founded Nc'nean, there were two important things that I wanted to do. One was pioneer sustainability, and the other was really think about innovation in Scotch. And that for us takes lots of forms, but one of the important forms, which is featured in 3 out of our 4 Huntress editions, is yeast trials. And the reason we called it Huntress is partly because Nc'nean, who is our namesake and where Nc'nean comes from, was known as a Huntress, but it also symbolises this kind of hunting for new flavours, this exploring the unknown, going where others haven't been before, and we just thought it was a nice way of encapsulating that element of what we're trying to do. And yeah, as you said, this is the 4th one. The first one actually didn't have its own name. It was just the year. And then we had Woodland Candy, Orchard Cobbler, and now Lemon Meadow.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit more about the kind of liquid behind it and the blending process and the tasting notes? And
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, we'll start with Lemon Meadow. We'll start with the name. We've got a very Ron Seal approach with how we name the Huntress releases individually, where the name is meant to be evocative of the taste, of the experience, of how it feels in the glass. And Lemon Meadow, I think, is probably the one we've really nailed it on the head. It couldn't be more Lemon Meadowy.
Yeah, exactly.
So incredibly citrus forward. A little bit of florality there that we put down with chamomile, but it's very like green grass, hay, fresh.
Yeah.
And then the finishing touch on this, the kind of the element that brings it all together, is this is an incredibly decadently creamy release. It's really mouth coating and creamy, like kind of, well, we've put all butter shortbread on the tasting notes, but it's like very full, maybe slight savory biscuitiness, and it's just mouth coating, soft, lengthens the finish. And we've achieved all of that, as you said, by playing around with yeast, the often forgotten ingredient in flavour in Scotch whisky, but I'd argue probably the most important ingredient.
And which, given there are only 3 ingredients, water, barley and yeast, it feels a shame that people forget about it.
Indeed, yeah. So already at Nc'nean we have quite an interesting and experimental approach to fermentation. Our flagship whisky, the day-to-day, I mean, 80% of what we make at the distillery is already an unusual recipe for Scotland. It's more of a New World whisky approach, but it's about maximizing flavor, and specifically the kind of bright, fresh flavors that we know the broadest possible audience are going to enjoy. So we uniquely, fairly, co-pitch 2 yeasts rather than using a single commercial distiller's strain for yeast. So normally this step of production for whiskey is all about just maximizing alcohol. We're here to obviously get a good amount of alcohol. We're making whiskey at the end of the day.
Yep.
But on top of that, maximize flavors, in particular esters, mid-chain esters, long-chain esters, which in terms of flavor means more mid-chain esters is more juicy fruits, so more peach, more apricot, more pineapple. And then long-chain esters is fats, it's weight, it's texture, it's bodies, viscosity. So that already unique co-pitched recipe does wonders for the flagship. And it's the variable that we've changed this year for Huntress Lemon Meadow. Everything else in this release, production-wise, is certainly spirit production-wise, is identical to how we normally make whiskey.
Yep.
But we've added in a 3rd yeast strain. So we've triple pitched.
Basically.
3 different strains of yeast, the Nc'nean fermenters that we normally use, and then the very romantically named Distillamax LM, which is a yeast strain that's been isolated from champagne production. So a kind of a sparkling wine yeast. And then that's changed the flavor profile. So the big differences you're tasting between the flagship Nc'nean and Huntress Lemon Meadow, it really has all come from that small change in the yeast. I mean, 20-25% of the yeast recipe, and you have this enormous shift in flavor where it's become so much more citrusy, so much brighter, got that little lick of florality.
And I think that's what's so interesting, is this part of the process of making whiskey, which is really early on. You know, this was now 2017 that we were doing this. It was a long time ago. It's not even the final part of the whiskey distilling process. It's before that. It's in the fermentation stage, which really is where all the flavor is created. You can make this relatively small change there, and it can flow all the way through distillation, survive the maturation process for what's nearly 8 years, and still make this difference, which just goes to show how important it is that, and this is so central to our philosophy at Nc'nean, that you create the best spirit you can at that stage, and every bit matters. It matters which barley you choose, it matters how long you ferment for, which yeast you use, how you distill. It all contributes to the final flavor of what's in your glass.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
And this one has been a long time in the coming. Can you tell us a little bit, because we've tasted this yeast trial a bit over the years, haven't we, and it's not been ready?
So obviously this was the first yeast experiment that we ran, so it was, well, it has been up for consideration for this. Is its 4th time now, and it's finally been chosen. And the first few times that we got round to it, you can obviously taste the potential, but there's something that you look for in casks that you know are going to mature well over a long period of time. There's a number of different things, but one of the main things that I look for certainly is acidity. When you've got that real bright acetic tang in a cask, in some instances that's wonderful as is, and you can use that to blend, and it's a wonderful way of balancing and adding some levity to a whiskey. But when this is majority made of this, and it was all kind of on that acetic level, like, well, this needs to mature a little bit longer, but that high acid level is really, really good for developing flavor. When I bang on about esters too much all the time, but esters are formed when alcohol and acids combine. So if you've got this big semi-porous to oxygen breathable vessel, you're allowing these interactions to take place. And if it's packed full of acid, if it's packed full of alcohol, and you've got loads of oxygen, you're going to generate all of these esters, and they're going to constantly break down, evolve, and turn into these wonderful flavors. So this has turned from being kind of an actually acidic fresh whiskey to a very bright citrusy floral whiskey, just with that kind of development passage of time.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about whiskey. You always know
you can always just wait.
Because really, this was not perfect the first time we tasted it.
No, it was not.
It has come into its own. So
it really has. It was so wonderful, obviously, doing the, as I mentioned earlier, part-time photographer, doing the photo shoot for Lemon Meadow, and we'd ordered those little biscuits from the wee bakery. I say wee bakery. From the big bakery across the water. On
which we were thinking about getting to have tonight, but we thought it would be unfair to those of you at the end of the camera if we sat here eating biscuits. But I can highly recommend, if you are able to get your hands on them, and actually if you've ordered from our UK website, you might have been sent them already, but these little biscuits called Lemon Melts, which are amazingly made in the bakery across the water on the Isle of Mull, called the Island Bakery. They're an incredible business. They also, much like us, do largely organic production, use renewable energy, and they've amazingly made these biscuits not for us, called Lemon Melts, and they are just like this whiskey in biscuit form. Perfect
combination. They work so well together because it really elevates that bright citrusness. You get the balance of just having a sweet, savoury biscuit treat, which is great, and it really compounds upon that kind of all butter shortbread note we've got at the end, where it's so viscous and creamy, having the kind of the duality of textures there, where you've got this incredibly decadent smooth whiskey and then crumbly sweet biscuits. It's so yummy. It's such a good combination.
And the other thing is, it means that if you're having a whiskey, there's an excuse to have a biscuit, and if you're having a biscuit, there's an excuse to have a whiskey. It's perfect.
Absolutely ideal. Right, I need to lean in because my eyesight's not that good.
Robert's got amazing tasting notes there of Italian lemon sorbet ice cream, which I love. And in fact, if you haven't got access to biscuits, just go for Italian lemon sorbet ice cream. Benjamin, I am looking forward to seeing you next week in Germany. I shall be there all week, so
lucky you.
Get to meet lots of people, which I'm very excited about. Any tasting notes from those of you watching? What do you think? Do you get that lovely citrusiness? We can maybe, we can maybe taste Nc'nean Organic next to it. If I could. See.
Sorry, yes, of course.
I think it's always interesting to taste the two side by side.
Definitely.
Especially because we talk a lot about the citrusy notes in Nc'nean Organic.
We do. And it's something that you find in our core range as such, where we have the Flagship and we have the cast strength version of Flagship. The tasting notes are the same for both, but I've always described it as kind of shifting the intensity of those flavors. So for the Flagship, we say lemon posset, stone fruit, caraway, rye bread. So it should be citrusy, creamy, should be juicy, fruity, and it should be kind of bready, warming, homely. And we have the same tasting notes for both the Flagship and cast strength, but at cast strength, it becomes much more about the citrus and the green spice and the breadiness, whereas in the Flagship, it's much more about the kind of the peaches and the cream and just being kind of delicate and fruity and elegant.
It's definitely, it's just not as intense on the citrusiness, is it? And I normally, when I taste Nc'nean, I normally get that citrusiness, but actually having had Lemon Meadow, it's just so much more subdued.
Yeah, it's a big jump in this. And my favourite thing, my favourite thing about our distillery broadly and the whiskies that we produce is they've always got wonderful texture, wonderful body. And that comes from the organic barley, that comes from the long fermentation time, that comes from obviously treating it very carefully through the still. And then kind of really importantly and unglamorously comes from not chill filtering the whiskey, not messing around with it right at the end. So retaining all of those long chain fatty acid esters, retaining texture, body, silkiness.
And it's so important. It just also just makes it such a pleasant drinking experience, doesn't it? When it coats your mouth and hangs around and
yeah, wonderful. So here we go. Fresh, bright, little yeasty and clear citrus. Thank you, Jürgen.
Yeah.
Fully agree.
Yeah, it's just that lovely lemon zest, isn't it? You know, when you've just peeled something off a lemon and It pops out at you.
Okay. Right, I'm going to finish this very quickly, and then we're going to have a little talk about the special treat that I brought along.
Okay, great. Has anyone got any questions?
Yeah, good point.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Amateur Casual, whose name we don't know. Any suggestions on how to mix it into a longer drink? Right, you're the man for this.
That's a very good question. Huntress Lemon Meadow, because it's so citrusy, I'd probably steer away from what we would normally suggest in this situation, where I think all of our spirits, the botanical spirit, the whiskey, they all work really, really well with bittersweet flavors. So things like Negronis for the botanical spirit, and things like Quinoto or Amaro for the whiskey all work really well. I think you probably, because those things tend to be quite citrusy themselves. Maybe
might
that's
be
a bit overkill. So things that probably would work wonders. Lavender would work really, really well. Lavender and citrus. So any kind of lavender soda you can get your hands on. There is a kind of a peach soda from one of the big producers kicking about at the moment. That with this would be wonderful.
It would be amazing. I also think it would I haven't actually tried it with plain soda water, but it's got the body to stand up to it. And I think it would be a very refreshing, summery, spring-like drink, actually, you know.
Definitely, yeah. And well, it's one of the reasons why we say to have soda with the flagship release. When you add soda to our whiskey that's got that rich texture and body, you create this very fluffy, dry aperitif-like serve. So that would work wonders too.
Oh, fig leaf soda. And a Scotch sour. I think both of those would be good.
Definitely live with that.
Yeah, fig leaf soda. I need to get my hands on some of that.
Yeah, and then maybe for something a little bit more stirred down, inspired by fig leaves and nuttiness, something like a Godfather, where you've got the kind of whiskey amaretto stirred down, so a kind of sweet nutty treat to make something a bit boozier, a bit fuller, with a little citrus zip on top.
Yeah,
and that'll be good.
I like it. Right, there's our homework for tonight.
Magical, right? So
keep throwing in those questions if you've got them, whilst we just have a little taste.
Indeed, and special treat time. So, as you'll know, every now and again, we find a little single cask of something incredible, something that's delicious as is, something that's kind of good and ready to go straight out of the gate. And this is one of them. And I pulled together a little selection of these samples and presented them to some top bars in the north of England, bars that I really respect that are doing great things. Both ecologically within their own bars, but also for their local communities, and just being good people, which is nice. So we've got Project Halcyon in Manchester, Below Stairs in Leeds, and Pal in Grimsby. So 3 top venues, amazing drinks, and really good bartenders with really good palates. So I wanted to kind of use that, sit down with them,
get them involved,
samples, and find something interesting together. And what we settled on is this kind of Northern Hospitality release. So a single cask selected by those teams and myself, to represent Northern Hospitality. And we found this very unusual ex-white Bordeaux cask in the warehouse. So this is something that has been matured since 2017, actually, in a bourbon cask, bar the last 2.5 years, I think it was, where I spent that remaining time in an ex-white Bordeaux cask. So a Sauvignon Semillon blend, which is very unusual for Scotch whiskey. There's not many white wine casks broadly. And it's because I think the traditional way of making single malt Scotch whiskey doesn't lend itself to the florality and perfume notes that you get from white wine casks, whereas our stylistically very different spirit does work quite well. And in this instance, it's created this wonderfully pickly, savory, zippy, very unusual, very Marmite, very diversive whiskey. But we were kind of sat thinking, like, what's the best possible representation of Northern hospitality? It's like, is it straight down the line excellence, or is it being really weird and quirky? And immediately I was like, oh, obviously it's being weird and quirky. So let's definitely pick that one.
This is the card for that.
So yeah, it's on our website now. Actually, it's UN 17156, the white Bordeaux cask finish, selected by those 3 top bars and myself. Official tasting notes: we've got jasmine tea, sweet almond, and you move it so I can get it.
Peach ice cream. Talking about that peach soda, that does reflect a lot of the kind of peachy notes that we get in the whiskey. But I love it. It's got this. I mean, it's not that funky think you.
It's not.
You know.
Yeah, I'm over egging it.
Yeah,
It's still Nc'nean.
it's
But
still
there is
Nc'nean,
this
but it's got this.
tang about it that I find really endearing. In fact, Manny, who's the owner of Below Stairs, had this wonderful tasting note that really nailed it for me. It's like dipping crusty white bread in Cornichon pickle. It's got those kind of savoury, zippy, spiced, floral zip about it.
Yeah.
And it's really Moorish. We were tasting it like, we know we like it, but we know maybe not everyone will.
Yeah.
But I mean, if a room full of 4 people with, I think, very, very good palates, all sit and enjoy it and get involved, then
it's really
it's
fabulous.
certainly worth sharing.
And it's that just slight vinegariness on the nose. It's so unusual, but if you like savoury things, it's incredible.
Just adding a little pickle, a little unusual way of adding complexity.
And where do you think that came from?
I think it's the casks.
Yeah.
Really, yeah, because obviously the retained liquid in the staves is always going to be this influencing factor because it's going to have spent so long really in that oxidative environment. You are allowing acetic acid to form, you are allowing, and again, you're allowing more esters to be formed on top of that. So you're constantly developing this bright flavour.
It's fabulous. Craig says you tried an Nc'nean Bordeaux at the distillery in April.
100% would have been this one.
I would say it was. Although
we haven't got any other.
No, we haven't got any other white Bordeaux cask. So if you tried it, then that is the one. Hello, Sven. Yeah, I would say that's the one. And it is it's super interesting.
Yeah. A little treat.
Exactly. Hi, Stan from the Netherlands. So has anyone got any other questions? You've got Matt and I here. All chance to ask your burning questions. But if not, I hope you're all really enjoying Lemon Meadow. And that you will continue to do so. Spread the word.
Sparkling wine, if I've got anything to do with the yeast that you're using. No. So let me reiterate the question. Has the sparkling wine on the photos anything to do with the yeast that you're using? Like, did you get it from them, or did they use the same yeast?
Is it a clue?
It's just a clue. It's a prop. It was to showcase that we had used a sparkling wine yeast, but it's more importantly the yeast strain that we've used, Distillamax LM, is not down the line champagne yeast. It is a yeast that has formed during champagne production, been isolated, and then turned into a commercial strain of yeast. So
exactly. So it is not like we went to Bordeaux and swabbed some leaves or grapes or anything else.
But yeah, it's something that's been found during that process, recognised as being very interesting and very cool.
Exactly.
So isolated
and developed. Exactly.
And turned into something that we could use.
And what's so interesting is when I look back at those yeast experiments in 2017, not only did most people think, what are you doing? Including most of the distillery team, I think, by the way. But there wasn't that much yeast readily available.
No.
And it was really quite an effort to find interesting yeast to use. And that scene has really changed now. And there's a couple of smaller providers out there who also name their yeast much better than Distillamax LM, which just makes me want to use them more. But you know, that there is this growing recognition, I think, in distilling and other places of how important that yeast is. And we now have a much greater kind of breadth of yeasts available to us, which makes our yeast experiments every year much more exciting.
Yeah, we've got lots of stuff planned for the next couple of years, really, from the first experiments when I joined the company in 2020, where we found a lot more brewer's yeasts that we could play around with.
Exactly.
Which, from a historical perspective, makes loads of sense, because Scotch whisky pre 1960 would have all been using brewer's yeast and lower yield barley, and just like lots of fun things there. But the brewer's yeast adds another dimension of complexity in loads of different ways. I mean, in the first 2 years we had 4 different experiments, and they're all wildly different and interesting for loads of different reasons. The Kveik stand out for me. Norwegian
farmhouse
yeast, very traditional. Like Kveik's not really a strain; it's like a colony of like-minded yeasts that are willing to work together. but it produces this very
Sounds
unusual.
very communist.
But it creates this incredible wash for us, which from the new make was amazing. Obviously, we'll have to see how it sits in cask and how it matures.
Yeah.
But I remember tasting the wash and it tasting exactly like Robinson's orange barley squash.
Exactly.
So malty, so orangey, so just chewy and full. And like positive it's going to make a phenomenal whiskey. You just have to
cannot wait for that
and
one.
see until it's ready.
Exactly. Okay, we've got a couple more questions here. Is there a cask strength in the tasting bundle? Sven, what do you mean by the tasting bundle? Can you enlighten us?
So on our website, maybe the minis?
Oh, maybe. We do a cask strength.
We do a cask strength mini that's available on the website, I think.
I have a feeling that...
But that's going to be UK only.
Yeah, it's UK only. We do a cask strength, and it should be available in most places.
Cask strength is available in the Netherlands, and as with anything that we kind of release, especially across Europe, if you're going to your local retailer, I'm almost positive they're going to have a bottle open for you to have a little taste first. So.
And if they don't, ask them to get one in.
Yeah.
More importantly. And then, yes, how are your sales of whole cask going, and do we have any left? Yes, they are good. I actually don't know if we have any left because I haven't got the list in front of me. I think there are a few spots, but we only release 60 a year, so it is not many. And we have been sold out, I think, every year since 2020. So if you are interested, get your name on the list soon. There are lots of different filling slots through the year. So you can also have the chance to come and fill your own cask, which I know lots of people enjoy doing. And a few people on the chat, I've noticed, have been saying that they have come either to fill their cask or take a sample of their cask or just visit their cask. And I was actually with a cask owner earlier today as well, who I think getting that, seeing how the cask is progressing is a really fun little experience. So
yeah, it really is, and it's really easy to get involved. Just you can email casks@nc'nean.com. All the information is on our website as well, so it's very easy to find and very easy to add your name to the list with no immediate commitment.
Exactly, we won't take cash off you immediately. And Beck, who manages our cask program, will explain any questions that you've got. So please get involved. Oh, thanks, team. Thanks for all the lovely comments, by the way. Really appreciating all of those. And those of you that have visited, I'm glad you've had such an awesome time. It's always been something that I wanted to make happen at the distillery, was these lovely, welcoming, in-depth tours. And I think everyone who goes seems to have that experience, especially because they've gone so far to get there that we need to make sure everyone has a brilliant time. So for those of you that haven't visited, please do come and see us when you get the chance. It's a little bit of an adventure, but I can assure you it's worth it.
Cool. I think we're pretty much hitting the half-hour mark. So I think thank you very much for joining us. This has been lovely. Just us talking to a screen and
talking to each other.
Hope you enjoy the rest of your
Thanks for joining, everybody. Lovely to see you, and I hope you all really love Lemon Meadow if you have had it this evening or when you get to try it.
Right. Cheers.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheerio.
Oh no, questions coming in. Do you plan to change something in the core batches, e.g. more sherry? No, not immediately. That's quite an easy answer. No, we added sherry as the sherry casks came of age, as it were. And also as the bourbon casks had developed further. I don't see that changing in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, the original recipe that I've been sort of aiming to work for did have a higher proportion of sherry originally, but I never felt that it worked.
Yeah,
I've always treated the sherry cask inclusion in the Flagship whiskey as more like seasoning. It's like salt and pepper. You shouldn't taste the sherry cask in anything that we release in the core range. It's there to make all the other flavors kind of pop and make sense. In my head, I've always thought of it like Angelica in gin. Like, if you put too much Angelica in your gin, it tastes like Chanel No. 5 and it's gross. But if you put the right amount of Angelica in your gin, the juniper and the coriander kind of harmonise and pop and work together. So we purposely only use that small amount of sherry in the Flagship as that kind of seasoning, binding, flavour enhancer. That's not to say that we won't do more sherried releases in the future.
Well, and indeed, I think some of those are in the offing. So it, you know, in single cask form or something, because we have got a reasonable amount of sherry in the warehouse. But I think in the core batch, yeah, too much sherry just overwhelms it. It's got to be like well-seasoned food, just there in the background rather than at the forefront. Oh, I'm sorry you just got here, but the good news is this is rewatchable. So you can go back in time and start at the beginning. Right. Cheerio, everybody.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us.
Have a good night.
Goodbye.